All right, all you price action traders out there, this is Sam from TradeDevils.com with an update on the Trade Devils price action indicator. Now, I'm recording this on Sunday, December 20th. So of course, markets are closed. But I'm just going to use the last 5 days of data. There's no need to cherry pick anything here. There's plenty of trades here over the last week. We'll just focus here on Friday. Actually, it'll be just fine. Now, this was an unusual day here. We had the big rally at the end of the day. It was tied to Tesla going to the S&P and a lot of that rebalancing. So, but it doesn't matter here. We can just look at any section of the day is just fine. So what we have here is an update on the version that was released back in November here. So these are some new features here that we've added to this that I think many of you that are price action traders or perhaps are working with the earlier version will be very excited to see here. Now, because there's an earlier version here, I want to refer you to our YouTube channel here, and I'll just fly this over here for a second, where you can get a look at that earlier version. So if you just come over, this is our over here on YouTube. It's Trade Devil singular, so it's youtube.com. Trade Devil. If you come over here, you go to playlists here, then you would go over to NinjaTrader, our training and our indicator videos here, and you can see here there's videos on many of our indicators here and some training as well. Some of these are not public, they're just for our members. But I want to bring your attention here to number 9, halfway down here, and that is the Trade Devils price action indicator. You see this was released on November 1st of 2020. Just give you a little bit of a background on how we ended up developing this indicator and some basics of this pattern here. So I would encourage you to consider that as a place to start if you've not seen it or if you're just getting interested in this kind of price action trading. So that said here, I would draw your attention to some of the new features in this version. Now, the most obvious thing right off the bat is you'll see that we've added a toolbar now to the indicator, right? It's just built into the indicator. Now, some of these features were available in the prior version. We've just now given you quicker access to them, as well as some additional features here and some enhancements here that we're going to go over today. So currently, I just have this set to show all of the second entry trades here throughout the course of the day on a 2,000 tick chart. Very common for price action traders to work with a 2,000 tick chart here on the S&P. And you'll see here that I've got, throughout the course of the day here, it's showing me, obviously I've got greens for buys, red for sells. And we can just, let's see here, let's do a quick review here. This is a good section here, fairly obvious here. We can identify the pattern pretty easily here. So let's just focus real quick here on this. Oh, let's find a good one. Oh, let me back up a little bit. Oh, let's see here. This will work here. Okay. So as many of you know, the pattern itself can be identified by a swing structure here, and we're giving you a couple of different ways to identify. One is to identify the swing structure through some zeros and ones, a zero being the start of the swing structure. So in this particular case, let me use our polygram tool here. So here's the swing down, here's the retrace, here's the next push down that creates the conditions for a long here. So this, where we identify here with the green arrow and the 2EL second entry long, this is the signal bar. The entry happens at a 1 tick break of the signal bar. In this case, obviously, for a long stop placement, the recommendation would be 1 tick below the signal bar. Now that's up to the user's discretion. That's what where we would suggest, particularly when you first start using this, that you go with stop placement. And you'll find that there's some benefit to using that here as relates to position sizing, but we'll get there in a second. Now, so that's one way to identify it. Here again, you can see this very clearly here, swing down. Here's the retrace, comes down. This case here, this is a particularly good one because we're coming right to the initial balanced low, and we get that push off of that low from the second entry. Well, the zeros and the ones may or may not be appealing to the individual, so we're giving you another choice here, which would be to show you the two-legged pullbacks via the swing structure. So if I open this up now, here, just as I was drawing, you see now the software will do it for you. So swing, retrace, there's the one, down here's the entry signal bar. At the break of 1 tick of the high of that bar, we enter long. You actually get a second entry short, interesting, right into that. But that's the basic pattern being displayed. And some people, you may not like the zeros and the ones. This might be too crowded for you. You want just the zeros and ones, or perhaps you're so used to trading this that you can spot it by eye. But my point being that we're giving you lots of ways to identify the swing structure and the conditions that create the signal bar, and that's what we're keying off of for long or short. Now, additionally, we've built in some additional features here that are tied to position sizing that we think are very powerful. So let's take a look at those, and then we'll circle back to how they relate to the toolbar. But we got to go into the indicator to get to those so that you'll understand what they're showing you. Let me just pull this up, and we'll focus over here on the parameters here. Now, the initial parameters here, much of this would be review from the first version. Not much has changed here, other than now we do give you the option here to click these on or off here within the parameters, but it's just a faster way to do it down here with the toolbar here. So again, you can play with these on, off, whatever your liking is here. I would encourage you to show trades and the stop loss take profit here as well. Risk and contracts, we'll get to that in a second, but again, you can either do it here in the parameters or down here on the toolbar. Right? So higher highs, lower lows, again, that's just pretty rudimentary. Position sizing is the big new feature here. So we're giving you a couple of different ways to approach your position sizing. Now, I have this running on a sim account that has, I think, a little over $104,000 in it. So if I wanted to let the software decide the position sizing here, there's a couple of ways I could do it. Well, one, I could start with it by using a percentage of my trading capital. So in this case here, I could say percentage of capital, and I would say I don't want to risk any more than 1% of this $104,000 account on any one trade. I don't want to risk more than 1%. Right now, targets for the number of contracts, this is entirely up to the user. Many of you will be familiar with a 4-tick target for the initial, if you're trading in multiple contracts here. Initial target would be at 4 ticks, so I'm just going to leave that here as the default. The stop loss and the entry bar, where you're entering and where you're placing your stop, here again, this is the default, which we would suggest you stick with initially until you get more advanced with this, would be 1 tick for the entry above below the signal bar, and stop 1 tick above below, whether it's a long or a short. Now, if you do it at percentage of capital, you're going to find that the contracts and the size of the trading here might surprise you in the size. So that may or may not be what you're comfortable with. So, but let me just go through this, and then we'll look at some demonstration. The other possibility is to do a fixed number of contracts. So here in this case, as I will typically trade it on a 3-lot. Fixed number of contracts. I want a 4-tick initial target here, and then I'll leave a runner, and that can be done either trailing below high lows or swing structure. It's up to the individual how you want to trail. But that's an option for you as well. And then additionally, you could do it by dollars. So you might say, okay, I don't want to risk any more than $500 on any single trade. So if we set it up this way, then the software is going to dictate the number of contracts based on the amount of risk that you're allocating in dollars to any one trade. So I'm going to go ahead and just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to leave it at percentage of capital. Right? So then I'm just going to bring down here and draw your attention to this, because these two tie together. So now as we look at the toolbar, well, first is whether I want to show it, and then of course, as I said here, you can put it top, left, right, or bottom, whatever your preference is. Because I'm so accustomed to the Trade Devil's toolbar up here on top, I'm putting it down on bottom. But if you don't, perhaps you don't have our toolbar, you can put it on the top or left, again, whatever your preference is, just demonstrating to you that that's an option for you. Now, the contract size, this is an important distinction. If you leave it at NinjaTrader, here you see you've got two choices here, NinjaTrader or the indicator. If I leave it at NinjaTrader, whenever there's an entry, it's going to be tied to whatever the ATM is over here. So you can see here my default would be a 3-lot on an ES price action 3-lot, right? Obviously, right? So that's going to be tied to a 3-lot, and I'm going to use I'm just going to use the default parameter. So I'm going to put the stop 1 tick below the low of the signal bar. Now I have the additional option here to let the indicator decide on the risk and number of contracts based on this setting. So let me demonstrate here so you understand what that means. Now, if I put it at indicator, it's going to override the ATM that's over here within Ninja. So let's apply that, and I'll show you what I mean. Turn this off here and give a second for this to tally up. Okay, so let's take off everything here, and let's just take off all of this. Oh, pardon me. Let's take this off. All right, we just focus right here on this section. Okay, so first thing I'm going to look at is the risk. All right, so if I click on risk here, essentially what it's doing is it's taking the size of the signal bar and adding a tick. So, for example, if I were to take this entry short here, it's telling me that that's an 8-tick stop, 1 tick beyond the high of that bar. All right, so in this case here, right, if you did it that way, you got stopped out because you entered 1 tick below the low of that entry bar, but I guess we opened and we closed. Yeah, so you would have been stopped out here. So 1 tick beyond that, it stopped you out here. Now, additionally, if I say I want to see the number of contracts, well, that's going to tell me that, again, per the setting that I established in the risk and the position sizing parameters, to use 1% of a $104,000 account, it's going to tell me that I could take 10 contracts here with 8 ticks of risk, right, with an 8-tick stop. Now, note here that as we come down, as we move here, so here, for example, I've got all, well, we'll put it on here. So I've got my second entry long here. Here's the swing structure that creates the signal bar, 1 tick break of that high. Now, the software is telling me that I can add 7 contracts. I can put on a 7 lot here. I'm going to be allowing for 11 ticks of risk at 1 tick below the low of the signal bar. Right, so that now note here, if I come over here, it's only 6 contracts, and that's because of the size of the signal bar. Right, again, because at 1% of my account balance here, it's going to do the math on the fly for you, so you don't have to tally that up. So tell you, hey, I can do 8 contracts here, I can do 10 contracts here, I can do 7 here. Again, it's all a function of the size of the signal bar plus a tick. Right, so that's again, it's up to the individual as you whether you want those showing or not, whether you just want to see the entry and then do that management yourself. I just want to demonstrate to you. You can tell you what the tick size is here. So you could set it that way to just show you the risk on any given trade, and then choose the lot size based on your risk tolerance and your trading plan. Or you can let the software tally it for you and tell you what you can risk, again based on whatever you define as your maximum risk: 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, 5, whatever your trading plan allows for in terms of your risk tolerance. So just some quick, nice features here to quickly identify, either showing me where the swing structure is, showing it to me via zeros and ones, showing it to me as both. Again, up to the individual as to how you'd like to have that displayed on your chart. Now, additionally, let's carry on here and stay focused on the toolbar here, because this ultimately gets us to where I'm trying to go, and then we'll look at we'll look at a replay session here, and I'll show you some of the features in action. Now, let's focus on key entry points. Now, this was available in the prior version. You just didn't have access to it via the toolbar. Now, here, if I click on toolbar, note what happens. Right, so now I'm losing. So on off, you'll see I'm losing some of the trades, because at the moment, the only variable that it has to work with to define a key entry point is this 21 period EMA that I have on the chart. So you'll see here, it's showing me that there's an opportunity for a second entry short here, because we're defining it here as we put this on here. As we hit the 21 period EMA, I've got the signal bar conditions here, so the entry would be 1 tick below the low of that bar, and you ended up with a nice trade there. So if we 1 tick below here, would you end up with? You got 18 ticks on that runner. So if you had a 4-tick first target, those were tagged, and then you got a runner here, and then again, it's up to the individual. If you're doing it 1 tick above the high of the bars, once we break this bar here, likely that would be your exit. So you got a profit on all 3 of them. That's just one way to do it. Again, up to the individual how you want to manage your trade and how you would want to manage a runner that's in the market. Okay, let me take those off here. Let's focus for a section here for a minute on this section, because this was a particularly good example here. Let me reset it up a little bit. Okay, so now as I have it set at key entry points only, there's show me every trade. Here's just key entry points. Now I get too far from the EMA for that to be a conditional entry here. So the only way I can trigger the entry here is by using some geometry. And I can do this either with trend lines or with a channel. I'll do it with a channel at first. So if I draw this up here, now as I come over here, now note what happens right there. Right? So as I get up here, I have the conditions here. Now this would be, I have the conditions to create the second entry signal bar. But a couple of things to note. First, well, one, we can just look at the EMA. So we know that it's trending higher, so the short-term trend is up. So question is, up to the individual as to whether or not you would want to take a counter trend trade here. Additionally, now I've got we could define that. We could define it this way. Here we'd say I got a swing low, I got a high, I got a low, a higher low, and then I get a higher high. So the short-term trend here is certainly up, right, and reflected via the EMA as well. So do I want to take that trade? Well, yeah, I would encourage you. My suggestion, particularly to those of you that are new to this, is to keep all the trades on, right? So don't do that, because what can happen is if you're new to this, or you got your draw just a little bit off, right? You might miss the opportunity because you didn't draw it just right here. So you can do this with trend lines. You can do it with, we do it this way. We can do it with trend lines, or we can do it with a channel here. So here's another one that's right here, because once I put the trend line on the pivot high of that bar, it's showing me that the conditions were there for second entry. And if I wasn't sure, I could always, let's just zoom in there a little bit. Well, now I can see the swing structure here that creates that condition here for second entry short. It gives me a signal bar. Now, do I want that trade? Right? That's up to the individual. Do I want that trade? Well, here, again, obviously it's always easier in hindsight. Well, you sure as hell wanted this one, right? But with regards to stop placement, do you want that, right? So this. Pardon me, I think I was wrong earlier here. Since you're breaking that low, you would not have been stopped out here. So this is the signal bar, right? So this is the signal bar, but you're triggered here on the break of that low. So since it didn't break that on the close, you would have ultimately ended up with that trade, right? So it actually ends up being a good trade. You got a pretty nice one out of that. Now, I think that my suggestion to you is to leave them on so that you don't miss one because of a misdraw on a channel. Let's see if I can find a better circumstance where you might have missed one here. So this is everything. Let's just look here if we've got something here. There's a couple right there. Okay, so because I'm drawing and I'm breaking the pivots here, it's showing me the second entry longs here. Now, do you want that trade, right? Trend is down. Do I want that entry? It's up to the individual as to how you want to approach that. I want the option personally, right? This is me. I wanted to make that decision as to whether I want that or not. I don't want to rely on a channel draw or a trend line draw. I want to make that decision. So I personally choose to have it show me all of them. But if you're a more conservative trader and you only want to trade with the trend, then that's certainly an option that we're making available to you. And there's two ways you can do it. You can do it here by key entry pivots, but the other choice here is within the parameters of the indicator, some of the entry filters that we're giving you. All right, so let's just focus on that over here and come down. So here we have entry filters. So one of those is to hide any signal bars that are dojis. Right, so that's just an option for you. It's going to reduce. I think there was one over here, spotted it earlier. So if you wanted to avoid those, that would be a filter that you could put into the conditions here. So you'd hide any doji bars for entries, for signal bars. The second is for the signal bar to be in the upper or lower 2/3, right? That's just another filter that's an option for you. Here is this is a bit of a holdover from the prior version. You could click it here would be the equivalent of clicking it here. My suggestion is to leave this off and then on or off based on what you want to see down here. It's just a quicker way to do it. And then the other is to ignore counter trend trades. Right, so if I click that on and I hit apply, and I go back here, well, you'll see here that it's not, if I put all, well, here, let's get them all. Well, now I've got everything off. Oh, because they're counter trend. So I don't want that to be filtered out. I want to see that, even though that's counter to this short-term trend, I want to make that decision. So my suggestion to you, particularly when you're first using this, is to keep all of those clicked off. So you make the decision as to whether or not you want to see those. All right, so let's turn all of them off. Let's go back and reset here, and then if I now if I go to set to key entry points, again, it's a function of how you're drawing either the channel or the trend line, right? Do you want that trade? Do you want that trade? I want to make that decision. Right? My suggestion there. Okay, so additionally, we've covered the contracts here. So I think just for the sake of demonstration here, I'll just quickly show you that if I wanted to now use the ATM for that position size, so here you can see it's 10 contracts with 8 ticks. If I switch back to a fixed number of contracts, now I hit apply. And I get out of this, and now you'll see 3, 3, 3, 3. All right? So one distinction here, you'll see F, right? F. Right? F means it failed to reach its target. So, for example, right now I have it set to a 4-tick initial target. So, in this case, because this did reach its target and much more, it's showing you that that was a successful trade. Right? Here I have an F, so if you were taking that long here, it failed to reach target. So here's the entry. We did not get 4 ticks, so this would be a failure entry. Got stopped out. Right, that's just by default to show those or not, right? So again, it's just up to you how you want to approach risk management or entry management. But that's just giving you a little clarification as you, because we get emails all the time. What's the F mean? F means it failed. Now let me show you this. If I had changed my target from 4 and I said, oh, I want an initial target of 12 ticks. Right, we'll go ahead and we'll click OK there again, and while this reloads here, you're going to see a lot more Fs, right? Because we have those that, so this one in this case did make 12 ticks. This one failed, this one failed, this one failed, this one did make it, this one failed, this made it, fail, fail, right? So you can see that distinction, and it's tied to what your initial target is, right? Did you reach that initial target? If yes, then you're going to get a 2EL. If it failed to reach that target, then you're going to get a F2EL, failed to reach target. All right, I think that covers everything with regards to new features here with regards to position sizing, number of contracts, risk management, the quick access here to whether you want to see the swings or whether you want the zeros and the ones or whether you want both. The last feature here, which is very powerful, is now the buy up, sell down here. But because the markets are closed here, I can't show you that in action. So I'm going to pause here just for a second, and I'm going to switch over to a market replay where I can show you those in action. All right, back in a second.
Order submitted.
All right, so here you see we've gone back to a market replay. We've got a second entry long that's set up here. So you can see on the indicator that it's giving your entry, your target. This is a 4-tick target here, and the stop loss is there. Now, what you'll also notice is as the market pulls back lower, the indicator will take the order with it and maintain the right relationship in terms of the tick. 1-tick entry above the signal bar. So we'll just kind of watch it here and you'll see how it fires and adapts to what the market is doing. So you see it moving down to react to the change in the signal bar. It should be filled here momentarily. This is all done just by clicking the buy on the toolbar. We're letting the indicator choose the size here, as you'll notice in the variations of numbers of contracts. And there's your entry with the first target and the runner target as well. Stop placement, again, automatically done. 1 tick below the signal bar. We'll wait and see.
Target filled.
There's a pop, and scalps are out. Stop still a tick under the low. There we go, nice move. And the target is filled. All right, there you go. All right, so if you are interested in the price action indicator or any of our many indicators, I'm going to show you a quick way that you can get access to that, or if you're interested in a trial. So I'm over here on our main domain. This is tradedevils.com. That link will be directly underneath the video. Come to our top line menu here, click on indicators. That will take you over to our indicator store. And then from here, you can peruse, of course, all of our indicators, packages, and strategies. But if you are interested in the 5-day trial, simply click here on 5-day trial, and you will see that you'll get some instructions here about the request for the trial and then the installation procedures. Now, in requesting the trial, what you're going to do is actually add it to your cart. But of course, there will be zero cost for that, as you see it reflected here at 0.00. Now, it's important to understand that you will receive a zip file. You'll need to unzip it. And of course, here are the installation instructions. If you've installed indicators in Ninja before, this will be very, very easy to follow. But just to walk you through that process, so here you would add it to your cart and then view your cart and check out. Here, I've got it twice here, but we'll go back to 1, and you see that, of course, it's $0. But this is how we can automate that process. All right, so there you go. These are fully functional versions of all of our indicators, so you can look at any of the many, many indicators that we have. If you ran into any questions or problems or issues, of course, we're easy to reach. We do have an FAQ list down here, but you could always reach out directly to either myself or my partner here, Erwin at tradedevils.com, who does all of the custom coding for us. He's a brilliant coder, and we are very responsive to any questions that you might have. I just wanted to walk you through that process and show you how you can do this. Again, very easy to do, never any charge, and these are fully functional versions of every one of our indicators. All right, so there you go. And with that, I'll wish you happy trading.